2025 to order. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We just have some housekeeping for our first meeting. So why don't we start with appointment of a new chair. Do I have any nominations? Well, how about this? I'll nominate John Lord as... Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Congratulations. Normally I would hand the gavel over. John's not feeling well, so I'm just going to stay here tonight. Okay, so we can also appoint a vice chair. I'll nominate John Nagel. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye? Aye. Aye.
You notice I didn't vote for him.
That's good. Thank you. I think you're allowed, though.
I know.
All right, next order of business would be to adopt our rules. There's been no changes, no suggested edits of any sort, so I would move as well that we adopt the bylaws as they currently stand.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then last but not least, we need to appoint a solicitor for the board. I would nominate Constantine to stay on for another year. He's yielded the ship well, and we appreciate his service to the board.
Second.
In favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay. I think that's it. Okay. So appeal number 3182, the applicant James and Suzanne Slattery, property located at 3 Meadowcrest Road, request an extension of time for obtaining a permit under section 280-144 of the code by an additional 6 months to July 29th, 2025.
Evening, Nick Cornelia, representing the Slatteries on this. Actually, I sent the letter in, not certain if we really need it, because the ordinance has been amended to now grant 1 year for the expiration of the relief. That was amended on August 19th of 2024. This approval, the decision was rendered on July 29th, 2024. I applied for another 6-month extension. This is the first extension. It's currently before land development. Don't know if I really need it. The 1 year could be applicable to this, and you may not need the extension, but again, in abundance of caution, I did apply for it.
Any questions from the board? None? Okay. Rather than getting into the legal weeds of something I know nothing about, why don't we 6 months, and if you need more, then we'll revisit it then.
Okay.
Okay, without exception then.
Yeah, and then actually, it would be 6 months, and then if I did need more, well, I have to come back and ask for the year. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I apologize for that.
That's
I don't
okay.
know the applicability to this
Yeah, I know.
file.
Yeah,
so.
I have. Well, it'd be 1 year. In effect, you're granting 1 year. You know, because it's 6 months plus 6 months. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Appeal number 3198, the applicant Thomas Shaw, property located at 203 Highland Avenue and zoned C1 commercial. The applicant proposes to convert the existing church into a single-family residence for his personal use, maintain the existing residence as a rental, and to provide 2 parking spaces in the front yard setback. Applicant seeks a variance from section 280-47 of the code to permit the conversion of the church to a single-family residence in the C1 commercial zoning district, a variance from section 280-103B relating to the number of off-street parking spaces, and a special exception provided in section 280-105. I think that's F. Is it B? It's cut off
Yes,
on
it's
my
an F, yeah.
F?
Yeah, it's the front yard parking.
Yeah, 280-105F
Frank.
of the code to permit 2 parking spaces in the front yard setback. Applicant further requests such other relief which may be required in conformity with the exhibits and testimony presented.
Okay, thank you. I probably are all familiar with this. This is in the West Wayne area of the township. Here's West Wayne Avenue. Up here is Conestoga Road. if you were looking at it. Going down West Wayne Avenue on the corner of West Wayne and Highland is where this church is located. A7 that will present as an exhibit indicates the front of the church is right on the corner of West Wayne and Highland. It was constructed in 1893. It was used as a church until approximately 2020. St. John's has since moved to Rosemont and now has their parish in Rosemont. This particular lot, as you can see, has no parking except for a driveway that's here. It's been listed on the market since January of 2023, so we're talking about 2 years. It's been unable to sell because it is Zone C1 commercial, and this area is not, even though you have Vic and Dean's over here and St. George Hunt's veterinary practice or former practice in this area across West Wayne, it's really not on the commercial corridor of Radnor Township. So for 2 years, they've been unable to sell it as a commercial property. A lot of the people that have come in, a matter of fact, a couple called me about trying to put townhomes in here, which of course would need additional relief, and also have multiple dwellings. So this proposal is under agreement of sale, is for Tom to renovate the interior of the church. The exterior would remain the same. It still would look as you see there, except for probably some facade renovations to brighten it up. And to turn it into his residence in the church. It's already fitted out with bathrooms, sinks, kitchens, and things of that nature that they use for the parish purposes. There is also an existing two-story building here, which was the parsonage that has been rented out in the past, and actually Tom's living in right now during the agreement of sale. That would remain a rental unit as well. So we would have a single-family dwelling in the church, for Tom's family, and then an existing two-story, and the existing building here would remain as a one-family rental unit. Tom's family does have experience in renovating these type of buildings. Therefore, we believe it's a good use, and actually there's a hardship just because it's not really feasible to be used for commercial purposes. So if you want to swear Tom in. And Tom, I tell you what, before you testify, let's call a pastor, and she'll just give you some background. See if I can find.
I do. Kasha A. Sudler. Kasha. Last name is Sudler, Sud as in David, Ler.
And Reverend Kasha, what's your profession?
So I am an ordained minister in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, known as AME Church. And I got my my last ordination of itinerant elder in 2021 due to COVID.
And what's your current position?
So my current position is pastor of St. John AME Church, and it's actually 7 months today.
And where is that church? Where's that church currently located?
It is now located at 930 Calistoga Road in Rosemont, PA.
Right. And I'm going to just show you
Yes, it is, sir. It's the former Radnor Methodist United Church. Yes.
And when did services stop or cease at this location?
So it ceased at Highland at 2020.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A2, and this is a deed to the property.
Yes.
And it was purchased in 1893.
Correct.
And how long has the church been in existence?
So the church has been in existence about 137 years, but it's been on Conestoga Road going on 4 years now. But it had a previous pastor before I got there, like I said, that moved them there. Yes.
Excuse me 1 second. Nick, Are there any restrictions in the
No.
deed with respect to use?
No, there's not, no. I'm going to show you Wispin marked as A3, and this is an agreement of sale with Tom Shaw here.
Yes,
And it's contingent upon getting zoning approval, of course, correct?
Correct.
And you are aware Tom wants to use the church for his single-family residence.
correct.
And actually, Tom's currently living in the
In the
parsonage.
parsonage, yes, he is.
Now, I'm going to show you what's been marked as A4, and this is just a survey of the property by Joe Estock. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm going to show you some photographs. First, A5, and this is just an aerial map, again, with the dot showing the church and the surrounding area.
Yes.
And actually, Highland Avenue is a residential street. Would that be
Yeah,
accurate?
correct.
And this would be very much consistent with the other uses on Highland Avenue.
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A6. And this is just the zoning map. I don't expect you really to know what we're looking at here, but I have marked as a zoning map, and you'll see the C1 zoning district and how it just extends for a couple properties. Although immediately next door, and I'll ask Pastor, immediately next door is actually a residence as well.
Yes, it is.
Is that where Diane lives?
Diane's across the street.
Oh, Diane's across the street, okay. Diane Lane is a parishioner. Correct?
Yeah, she's a parishioner. She's actually the vice chair of the trustee board.
And a longtime Radnor resident, that's
Yes.
A7, this is the front of the church that
Correct.
we're referring to. And A8, this would be the church at front and back.
Correct.
And A9, again, just an aerial view, and the house here is the parsonage.
Parsonage, yes.
And A10 is a better view of the parsonage.
Correct.
And A11, just again, the
Another view, yes. Another view of it, yes. That's the parsonage.
This property's been listed since January of 2023,
Correct.
and there has been no suitable buyer for the property. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And you heard during my opening, I had mentioned that there were commercial uses were being proposed, but none of them came to fruition, mainly because of the lack of
Parking, yes.
And the residential uses have all been for multifamily type
Yes.
uses, which you have rejected.
Yes.
And this use was kind of like the perfect storm.
It was the perfect storm, and I like the fact that he's going to keep some of the structure to keep some of the history of the church.
Showing inside A12, this is the inside of the church currently,
Yes.
or it's not currently. I don't know if the pews are still there. Or the,
Pews are still there.
and actually A13, again, we had mentioned that it's already fitted out for kitchen use, and I believe A13 shows the part of the kitchen or a view of the kitchen.
Yes.
A14 shows refrigerators, ranges, things of that nature.
Yes.
And this was all part of the church and part of the.
Yes. We have done some cleaning, though.
Yeah, it looks like it's clean. Yeah. A15 again, just an overview of the property itself.
Yes.
And actually, A16 is a letter from you.
Yes, it
saying that
is.
you're in support of the application.
Very much so.
And I'm just going to show you one other thing. And you gave me this a little while ago, and I've marked it as A19. This is just a little interesting tidbit because the history of St. John's AME Church, referencing that it was founded in 1888. And I've marked that as A19, and I'll hand some copies of it. Reverend, that's all I have for you. Any questions?
Yeah, any
Reverend
board
Kasha?
questions? No, I have a question. So, and Nick, I think you might have been answering it, but I had my head down looking at other things. So on the same side of the street, I think it's to the south. What's to the south of the property? Same side.
Same side. It's
Yeah, along there.
Tom, you've been sworn in already. Do you? Yeah. Good. Why don't you-
Across the street or right next
Across
door?
Highland? Across Highland.
Cross Highland, yes.
Across Highland it's a mixed-use property. I think it was developed maybe about 4 years ago. It's Crescent, there's a business called Crescent Realty in the bottom, and then there's apartments above. I've been in Radnor for 8 years, and I think they did that renovation about 4 or 5 years ago, and they cut some new parking spots as well, and they really brought that building back to life because it was pretty in bad shape for a long time.
Yeah, actually, A5 has a good view of it, and then, does it then become residential below where Crescent Realty is?
Above, I think it's apartments above on the
No,
second
I don't mean
floor.
that. I mean further south on
Oh,
Westwood.
that's the only commercial building on Highland, actually. Then there's another church down the way as well, but it's the only commercial property.
Odoriso's up here.
A little bit further down. Right, so what's between the park then and Crescent Realty building?
So that would be going down West Wayne Avenue.
Correct.
And there's a number of multifamily homes because there's always for rent, for apartments to rent signs. I believe there's a local landlord who has a business that he stores trucks in one of those houses in the back, and it's almost like a commercial use with some heavy trucks. But all those, the frontage of all those residents on West Wayne going down to Odoriso Park are apartments for rent,
They're
multifamily
residential.
homes.
Yeah, and actually down here, I think the one you're referring to, it's my cousin. And he does have apartments up front, and then he has his contracting business in the rear, and then the house he grew up in behind that. And it's all legal
Yeah,
non-conforming.
that answers, thank you. Why did the church move?
So the church moved because the former pastor before me, he had a vision. They were growing out of the space. So, and he had talked, he's from Radnor, the former pastor. His name was Manuel Howard. Many of you might have known him. He grew up in Radnor. Yeah. And so he had a vision to buy the United Methodist Church when they were moving out. And so that was his vision, to grow the church.
I figured you were going to say that it grew, but I just wanted to,
Yes.
yeah, okay. Thank you. Any other questions? No?
Richard Allen did preach there, so at Conestoga. Yes, sir. And there's actually up on the top floor, there is a room called the Richard Allen Room because of that, because when he lived in Radnor, he walked from Radnor to Mother Bethel and to Radnor United Methodist Church to preach several times. So we have a room called the Richard Allen Room. Yes.
Thank you. I think Mr. Richardson's here, if I could call him briefly. He's the realtor for the property.
And sir, if you'll raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
And state your full name, please.
Maurice Richardson.
There you go. And Mr. Richardson, what is your profession?
I am a real estate broker.
And how long have you been a broker?
I have been a broker now for 2 years. I have owned and operated my own brokerage now for a year.
And where's that located, your brokerage?
205 North Monroe Street, Media, PA, 19063.
And do you have this listing for this property on Highland Avenue?
Sir.
What type of people have you haven't had any agreement of sales except for this one on the
Correct.
property?
Correct.
And it's been listed by another realtor prior to you since 2023?
Yes, sir.
January of 2023?
Yes.
And this is the first agreement of sale that you've actually had.
Yes.
What type of uses have been proposed, and why were they rejected? Or not feasible?
We had one who came he wanted to be a vet. He wanted to open up a vet office there. We had another person come who wanted to do a multi-unit. And then there were some investors who were coming and talking about knocking the church down to build condos and things like that. Our issue was parking. There's no parking there, and we didn't feel it was safe to give people the access to the parking lots in the area. So we just felt it wasn't feasible for what they were planning.
And it wasn't feasible for commercial because there wasn't parking.
Correct.
And it wasn't feasible for residential because everyone was looking at it for multifamily.
Correct.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any board questions? Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Tom. You're sworn in, Tom.
Cool.
So, where do you currently live?
I'm currently renting the parsonage. It's the address there is 303 West Wayne Avenue. I've been there since December. I have a 6-month lease until the date of close if the sale goes through.
And prior to that, where did you live?
224 Lenore Avenue.
Which is
224 Lenore Avenue,
Lenoir.
about 3 blocks away.
How long were you there? How long did you live there?
My ex-wife and I bought that house in March 2021.
And you entered into an agreement of sale for the purchase of 203 Highland Avenue, this property.
Yes.
And how do you intend to use it?
When I've seen the property for the last few years. I take my kids to school on that route, and we go to the parks. I've always been interested by it. I originally considered it as an investment opportunity, and then when a certain life circumstance came up, I started looking at the property a different way. My intention is to live in the church building, to turn it into a residence, and it already has the basic bones to be a residence. There's already the kitchens and the bathrooms and an office that can be a bedroom. And then I would want to rent out the parsonage as a rental unit.
Would you be adding any additions or structures to the property?
No, sir.
Would you be changing the facade of the church at all?
Just paint.
So you would be keeping the stained glass windows and all of it? Is that the intent right now?
There is I need to get some natural light in the building because all the windows are stained glass. So I need to consider like which ones could be removed and be clear plain glass just to get some natural light in and see some blue sky. But my goal is to keep it as, I guess, historically preserved as possible because I do like that charm of keeping something intact from the 1800s.
Now, showing you the plot plan, which has been marked as, I believe, that's the large one, it is Exhibit A4. One, we see a driveway here, correct?
Yes, sir.
There is an existing driveway.
That's where I currently park, yeah.
You're proposing 2 parking spaces?
In the front yard, yes.
Okay, and that's why we need relief, a special exception on the front yard setback for the parking?
Yes,
And it's in the setbacks, not in the right-of-way or anything of that nature?
correct. And there's already already a cut curb lane into the street there as well. So we're not altering the path of the cars in any way.
Okay, so same curb cut.
Yep.
And the 2 parking spaces will be used for the church, the residents, is that right?
Correct.
And then there is a driveway, and possibly for the rental unit, the driveway would be used to some extent for parking?
Correct. 2 spots.
Now, I'm going to show you what's been marked, I believe, as it would be A17 and A18, and they're the proposed renovations and floor plan. And if you could tell the board what your intent is as far as renovations are concerned.
Yeah, so I've been through the property quite a bit. The first phase of everything is to get the physical plant up to snuff. There's knob and tube in the building. They've remediated some of it, and they've remediated most of it in the parsonage. So the first thing would be to get the electrical up to par. The heating system is really good. The heating plant has probably been done in the last 5 years. They put a new roof on. Really, the main goal here is to preserve the exterior. The exterior is, in pretty bad shape. It needs to be scraped and repainted rather quickly, and probably replace some wood on some of the soffits and gables. And then inside, the footprint really is what I need it to be. It has a large great room, which I'll use as the great room as the sanctuary. And then there's an existing kitchen, which needs a renovation, but all the facilities and utilities are already there. Outside of that kitchen is a large open space that would be a dining room And then next to that is a closed office. That office would become the bedroom for right now. I might expand the footprint of that office, but it's really, has the bones to be a bedroom right now. And then there's 2 powder rooms on the first floor as well. And a big part of the renovation would be to knock down the wall between the 2 powder rooms and make them 1 master bathroom. But all of the plumbing is already there, so it's more about retrofitting that space.
And it's A17 and A18. Would that be description of what you're intending to do as A17?
Yes.
And then A18 would be the floor plan.
Yeah, and the other thing is to replace the fence. Right now, there's an old chain link fence that's falling down. It looks pretty shabby. It would be to replace that fence line with a new fence, just to clean up the property, and probably add some lights at the end of each walkway to help light up the street, and then some, I guess, architectural landscape lighting to kind of light the building and really give new life to the corner.
Do you have any experience in doing this type of thing?
I do. This is my personal bio. I grew up in a town called Riverton, New Jersey. Riverton was the first planned community in America. It was founded by 6 men from the main line as their summer resort. Riverton features the first, it's the oldest Victorian yacht club in America. I grew up across the street from Joseph Campbell's house, so the original founder of Campbell's Soup. And as a child, my grandfather got into the real estate business, and he started saving these old Victorians in Riverton that, similar to this church, were just so beyond repair. He started buying them, fixing them, and turning them into multifamily homes in this very historic town. So from 8 years old to my 40s, I grew up on a construction site, renovating those old homes. At the peak of my grandfather's business, I think he had 12 properties in town. I was the de facto maintenance man, landscaper, so it was quite fun. And then, after a 17-year career in New York, when I was about 40, I bought a house in Riverton. It was the town's first general store. It was built in 1851. It was built by a Quaker family, a very unique building. At some point in the 70s, they turned it into, someone duplexed the house and made it 2 units. So I bought that house. I lived in it. I renovated it from the ground up myself. I lived in it for about a year. I met my wife, moved to Wayne, and I operate that building currently as a multifamily home. So I rented as 2 apartments, and my mother helps me manage it. She lives 2 blocks away in the house I grew up in.
Thank you. I have nothing further. No other witnesses.
No. Also, in 2021, we bought a house on Lenore Avenue, which was in very bad disrepair. A woman had owned it for a number of years and just didn't keep up with it. It had the original 1910 cabinets in the house when we bought it. So I GC'd that project and did a lot of the renovation, and probably saved that house because it was really bad stucco job and things like that. So I'm very much a hands-on person. I obviously would never do electrical and plumbing myself, but most of the carpentry work I can do myself.
Thank you. Any board questions?
Would you consider placing a facade easement on the property?
I don't understand the question, sir. A facade easement?
Facade easement so that you maintain the outside as it appears.
Oh, yeah, that's my intention. I mean, what draws me to the building is the character of it.
The difference is this becomes a legal thing then.
Well, you can, John, if you wanted, perhaps you can condition it instead of actually,
Yeah.
yeah.
The only thing I would ask is, my main thought is the main central stained glass window on the front, because there's a mirror of it on the back side, but it's 6 feet away from the parsonage, right? So that window doesn't overlook anything. My initial intent and gut feeling is to replace that section. So, can we show a picture?
Yeah, and I guess, John, where we have to be a little bit careful is it can't be exactly the same. And
yeah, and these are 1890s stained glass
guess
windows, so
the
they're
other-
not really.
yeah, the other issue is how do we enforce it? So, but
So
I know his testimony is he's going to maintain the facade.
Oh yeah, and I actually like the historical sign out front too. I would love to do something like that, or move that to the backside where the Radnor Trail is, and put some kind of make it like some kind of historical marker about the church and things like that. So my plan here is to keep these 3 diamond windows up top, and then to replace the 3 sections below that with glass windows. And then I'm going to have to try to figure out a way to retrofit glass either on the front or back side, or the inside or exterior side of the other windows, because they're just lead stained glass windows and air is just leaking in the building. So I'll have to figure that out. But I want to keep them.
Since we're talking about windows, how about the side windows? There looks like there's two to the left, and then
Yep.
same idea, keep the top stained glass and.
To this, so those two to the left here those are in the kitchen, and then if you turn the corner, there's two more there. So the idea is, whether it's I would probably keep these two because it's the front, and then the side ones might become glass, and those are the only ones I was considering turning into natural light windows. No, what I love about the building is the charm of it and the character of it. I would not want to mess with it. And it doesn't need it. The brick's actually in really great shape. I'd probably put new doors on because those are probably 1970s doors. Are not original to the building in any way. So everything I would do would try to bring it the character of what it was like in the 1890s.
Do you have any renderings of what the facade might look like with this tonight?
Yes. Did you have them?
Which one, what you gave me?
Yeah. On the seat. Can I go grab them? Yeah, so the parsonage is currently has vinyl siding on it. It's a
Let's mark it. I didn't realize that's what this was when you gave it to me.
Yeah, all good. So
There is a rendering he has of what it will look
the
like.
second page.
Of this one here, right?
Yeah, that's
There it is. Okay, that one's better.
prettier picture. So the parsonage is currently clad with a vinyl siding. It's a cream color. It's actually in really good shape, and I think I mentioned they replaced the roof, I think, in 2017 on both buildings. My plan is to, because the parsonage is basically done, it doesn't need anything except a power washing, is to start picking up the colors from the parsonage and painting all the trim and I guess gables the same cream color. And then there's two sections of cedar shake in this gable here on the front and then the rear side, and I would probably paint those some shade of gray, but really not mess with anything else. I think there's some repointing on one of the back sides in the brickwork, but the goal is to really keep it as original as possible.
What consideration have you given to consolidating the parsonage? Can you consolidate that into the church building if you wanted to?
Well, I think that would be a zoning question, but I mean, so my mom had that idea. So right now they're 8 feet apart from each other.
Oh,
so
that answers my
they're
question.
not connected in any way.
Okay, that
Yeah,
answers my question.
if you go examine the property, they built a utility room in between the two buildings, but there's Bilco doors into that, and they don't go in. So there's no secret passageways to the buildings. The parsonage was built in 1940.
Okay. My last question is parking. Can you show us better? I would like to hear again, how many parking spaces are you proposing?
Yep.
And then, Nick, I have a question for you about
Yeah.
that. but-
So right now there is a old gravel driveway down the side of the property, and you can fit 3 cars in it. We all know that that's not practical. So the intention is to use the existing driveway to have 2 cars back to back, and then to cut 2 new parking spots to the left of this red car, and they would park in the front, in basically what is considered the front yard, and pull in and back out the, I guess, existing curb cut. There is the space to have 2 cars, per the surveyor's plot here. I think you can see that right here. So I think with some basic fencing and landscaping, it's my job is kind of help that out. There are a number of properties on Highland Avenue that have the same kind of parking scenario. I don't know if they got relief. One of those buildings was renovated about 3 or 4 years ago. It's right next to the Highland Avenue apartment complexes. And then there's like a 1960s duplex towards the end of the block at Maplewood that has, it's a duplex, and they have 4 parking spots next to each other in a row at the corner there. So there are some other buildings that have that. And then directly across that commercial property with the Crescent Realty and the apartments above it, they've cut, I think, 6 to 7 spots directly off into the street. I can't do that because I have the stop sign on my side of the street, so I need to maintain my current, lane in.
Okay, thank you. Nick, can you explain to me the special exception for the parking?
That's in the code. There's a provision in the code, I believe, the 103F, that references parking in the front yard setback. and it's a special exception for parking in the front yard setback. So that's where the special exception comes in.
But you also need, number of parking, you need relief for the number of parking.
We need relief. My understanding is the townships now, even though it's a non-conforming situation, that we still have to ask for a variance for the parking, even though, for example, this is probably non-conforming as to 30 parking spaces.
Yeah.
Since, we're doing something different, we have to ask for the relief on the parking.
How many
And technically,
spaces
we
would
would
you
need
need?
4. We would need 4 spaces.
2 for each unit.
2 for each unit. And in effect, what we're providing, 2 of them would be back-to-back, which, again, you really couldn't.
And those would be mine. Like those, I would use those. I'm a single father, so I would be using those 2 parking spots, and I would be using the back-to-back spots, and then the tenants would use the one side by side for convenience.
All right, my last question, any impervious coverage issues?
No.
On the application,
Yeah,
including
C1, I
with the
believe it's
proposed
like-
driveways?
Yeah, it's like 70% or
Is
60%.
that on the plan?
It's not on the plan, but he would have to, when he makes his grading permit application for the parking, he's going to have to show impervious.
Yeah,
We're not asking for that relief.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
I talked with him at length, and he said there's no problems.
I guess I'll change the question a bit then. Stormwater issues, do we,
It would have to be, I believe it's over, how many square feet now, Kevin?
500 square feet, I believe, is.
500? If you add 500, you have to do stormwater, or some sort of stormwater, then I think it's something between 500 and 1,000, and something over 1,500.
Any earth
Anything that-
disturbance will require an application through our engineering department, and then they analyze impervious being removed, impervious being added, those that are being converted, and it's an entire process.
sounds good. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? No? Okay. Oh, I forgot to welcome you. Thanks. Anything else, Nick? Sorry, I'm not.
I had an impervious calculation somewhere, but I knew it complied. I believe I have it somewhere, but it does comply.
Okay.
That's all I have. Just request the exhibits be made part of the record.
Without exception. Okay. Is there any public comment? Step on up.
If you raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your full name, please,
Donald Lewis,
and Lewis is spelled.
Lewis. I'm a resident of the neighborhood. I own properties at 232 Highland Avenue and also at 401 Fairview Avenue. I've lived there 38 years at this point, seen a lot of changes in the neighborhood. So only a few comments. I'm totally supportive of this. I'd love to see this building remain in our neighborhood, not be torn down, turned into who knows what. And this sounds like a great plan. And in particular, the one thing I would like to say, whatever variance or exception you need to make for parking is really pretty critical. Our street's pretty challenged as far as on-street parking. Lots and lots of the houses along our street have back-to-back parking, if they have any parking at all. So those are really important issues, I think, for the overall design, is to make sure that there's adequate parking on the building and not taking even more spots away from what is already a challenging situation in our neighborhood.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. Motion? Do I have a motion?
I move that we grant the applicant the variance for section 280-47 of the code to permit conversion to a single-family residence, a variance from 280-103B relating to the number of off-street parking spaces, and a special exception provided under 280-105F of the code for 2 parking spaces in the front yard setback, consistent with the testimony we've had and the exhibits.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any board discussion?
my thoughts are that overall, having properties sit vacant in Radnor Township is nothing that's in our best interest for the community itself. So, me personally, I like seeing structures reused and also rehabilitated and used. So that's where my head's at.
John? No? Charlie?
Yeah, I'd second that.
But
Just the wasted property is not useful for the town.
By the way, I should have done this. I'm going to do it in the middle of your application, but I welcome our newest member to the board. So Charlie DeSantis Wiener, thank you for stepping up. Okay, sorry. Any other comment? No? Okay. Let's take a vote then. Zach?
I'm in favor.
John?
Aye.
John? Charlie?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. Good luck with the project. Sounds like a nice use to the property. So.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
All right. Okay, appeal number 3199, the applicant Consiglia F. De Laurentiis Revocable Trust, property located at 136 Garrett Avenue and zoned GHGA. The building contains offices on the second and third floor and a residential unit on the ground floor and is non-conforming as to the required number of off-street parking spaces, which is not increased by the residential unit. Applicant seeks a variance or other requested relief from the special regulations for the Garrett Hill zoning district 280-49.11F13 of the code, which prohibits residential units on the ground floor. Applicant further seeks a variance, if required, from section 280-103B regarding the number of off-street parking spaces. Applicant further requests such other relief, which may be required in conformity with the exhibits and testimony presented. Good evening.
Evening, Nick Cornelia representing the applicant. Fran?
Nick, if you could just make sure you're getting into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Good evening.
Okay.
So, excuse me, Fran. So this property is in Garrett Hill on Garrett Avenue, a couple properties up from the corner of Garrett and Conestoga Road. And it's on Garrett Avenue. I've marked a couple of the exhibits. One, A6 shows the front. There's two buildings on this property. The front building is A6 here. The back building is located here. In the back building, it's all offices. The front building has offices. Above it, there's a first floor office, there's a second floor office, and a loft, which is also an office. In the basement, which brings us here this evening, is an apartment. And there's exhibits here, we'll show you the apartment. The apartment actually has 3 different entrances. This apartment has existed since approximately, as far as we can figure out, 2010. Fran lived in that apartment at one point. It was built by her husband, Luigi, who brought these properties back in the mid-1980s and converted these buildings. The front building, I believe, was a duplex. He converted it to office and the basement into that apartment. At one time, it was office with the 2 offices on the first floor, and then the upper floor. The upper floor was residential. As I mentioned, around 2010, we believe, the basement was converted into an apartment-style use. And you see by the photographs, very fine work that it was done in that instance. So we're asking for relief from the section of the Garrett Hill ordinance that says you can have a mixed use, but the residential use has to be above the commercial use. In this case, it is actually below the commercial use. That's what brings us here this evening. It's not really a use variance because the use is permitted. It's the location of the use. The other relief we're asking for, currently, there are parking spots there. Whether we need it or not, again, it's a non-conforming situation, but the residential use requires 2 parking spaces. The commercial use would require actually more than the 2 parking spaces. But again, in abundance of caution, we are asking for relief for the 2 parking spaces because the intent is to park on the lot in these parking spaces. So Fran, you've been sworn in, and let's go through some of the exhibits if we can, and here you go.
Nick, I'm sorry. So how many parkings? 2 parking for the residential use.
And that's all we're asking for, because the residential use requires 2. The commercial
And
use, the office
existing
use.
parking is
Right, for the office use. right.
understood. Okay, thank you.
And Fran, you're the trustee, we have to hold that up. You're the trustee of the trust who owns the property, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. And this was previously owned by you and your husband Luigi?
Yes.
And Luigi passed away, correct?
Yes, in 22.
In 2022?
Yes.
And it was placed before he passed away when he got sick. He placed the property in this trust, you and him.
In 2018.
18, right. And I'm going to show you the deed that's been marked as A2, and this is the deed to the property, correct?
Yes, it is.
You currently have it under agreement of sale, and that's been marked as A3, the agreement of sale. And that, again, is contingent upon zoning relief, correct?
Yes.
And is this is your asset, right? This
My only
property.
asset.
Okay.
I have nothing else.
Luigi, your husband, former husband, he emigrated from Italy, correct?
Yes, he did. In 1962.
And he settled in Garrett Hill?
He settled in early 60s, 63, 64. I wasn't around then, but I heard.
And Luigi acquired this property, according to the deed, in 1984.
Yes.
And when did you marry Luigi?
In 95.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A4, and that's an aerial of the property that we're looking at here, A4. And the star on it, that's the property that we're referencing, right here. You can, right? Aerial of the property? Yeah, you have to respond, I'm sorry.
Oh.
That's your property there, with the star on
It
it?
is.
And here's Conestoga Road and Garrett Avenue, the intersection. So it looks like it's 3 properties up from the intersection of Garrett and Conestoga, right? Now, also, we've marked as A6, and that's A5 is the site plan, and A6 is, again, a picture, an aerial picture of the property itself, correct?
Yes.
And the front building, that was formerly a residential twin?
It was a duplex.
Was
yes.
a duplex? Okay. And then Luigi converted it to offices. And at one point, there was residential use above those offices.
For his
Correct.
family.
For
Yeah.
his family. He was married previously and had children by a previous marriage.
Yes.
And then the back building, do you recall when that was constructed?
In 94, and it was finished in 95.
Okay, so you were married when the back building was finished.
In 95.
All right. And that's an office building. It's all offices in there?
Yes. One tenant.
Right. And this front building was converted to offices, would be true, in 1988? Is that when it was converted?
I believe so, yes.
Has there been any additions to any of these buildings since 1995?
No.
All right.
No, sir. No.
I'm going to show you some photographs. First, I'm going to show you what's been marked as A7. Again, that is a photograph of the property itself. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. And A8 is a photograph of the front building, the front of the
Yes.
building. And A9 shows the front building from the rear.
Yes.
And this area here where there's some fencing porch area, the apartment is down below there.
It's down these stairs, yes. Yes, it is.
And A10 again is just another view of that, correct?
Yes, it is.
A11 is a better picture showing
Yes.
the stairways.
There's two stairs, one's here and the other one's here.
And they're both to the apartment.
Yes.
Is there a third stairway entrance to the apartment?
Yes, it's in the back.
Okay. And actually, I didn't mark this. I can mark it as A11A. And is this the other stairway?
Yes, it is. Yes.
It's, it's, I'll just hand it out. And A12, again, as we mentioned, shows the apartment and the stairways. A13 is the other stairway and the door to the apartment. That's the second door to the apartment.
Yes.
A13 are the doors to the apartment, the front entrance.
Right.
I'm going to show you some photographs, and these are, I believe, just photographs of the apartment itself,
On the
correct?
inside, yes.
A14,
Yes.
A15. And that apartment's currently vacant, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
A16.
Uh-huh.
A17 shows bathroom.
Yes.
A18, part of the kitchen and a dining area, correct?
Yes, sir.
A19 is the kitchen.
Yes.
A20 and A21,
Bedroom.
bedroom, and A21 bedroom.
Yes, bedroom.
A22 bath.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to show you what's been marked as A23. And this is from, it looks like from 2011, an inspection record. And to be honest, we've gone, Kevin and I have gone through this, and we're kind of trying to figure out, what happened here. What I'm showing is A23, which marks it as one family, and it shows some demolition. We tend to believe that it could be for one of the entrances to the apartment. But again, I think it was before Kevin's time, and the records of the township really aren't clear as to, why that permit was issued. We do know, and we have the purchaser here who could testify, that inside a lot of the electrical and plumbing is dated from 2010. And so we can testify to that too. But the fact of the matter is this apartment's been there since at least 2010, as far as we can determine.
That would be in the front, the building in the.
Yeah, the building in the front. Yeah, there's only one apartment. It's the building in the front. That's all I have for Fran.
Any other parts of that building occupied? The front building?
I believe the first floor is
don't
occupied
understand.
for offices.
I have trouble hearing.
Sure. The front building,
Yes.
how's it currently occupied? Is
There-
it, go ahead.
It's offices, and there's tenants in there.
In which floor? Is there,
The first floor.
but there's no tenants on the
No.
second floor is offices, but it's not occupied currently.
Right, it's empty.
And then one last, on A9, there are two doors on that first floor. They go into that office space?
That's the lobby. You go in and there's a lobby
A lobby for the offices.
for the offices, and then there's private doors to each office.
And up here are offices.
Yes,
There are offices too. Yes. Yes, fire escape, because I believe code requires a fire escape. The apartment is a separate entrance. It doesn't share any entrances with the offices. It's totally separate.
There's just one apartment?
Yes, there's just one apartment, correct?
yes,
Yeah,
one
yeah.
apartment, sir. Sorry.
And your microphone's not on. Any other questions?
Kevin, are there any issues with a basement apartment?
One of the things when we became aware of this, this was the first step to get the relief to allow the residential use because there were not permits applied for or issued or inspected. The next step would then be for any future owner to come in, apply for the permits. We would perform any inspections that we feel are relevant to make sure that it is safe and up to code to the extent that we can, and we would go from that point.
But the overlay doesn't acknowledge basement dwellings, does it?
No, I believe the zoning code, as Nick pointed out earlier, allows for residential use, but when it's located above a commercial use, in this case, it was below, which triggered the need to come to zoning hearing board, and then we'd get the permit issue resolved after.
Thank you. Was this previously lived in as a apartment?
Yeah, she lived in it. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
She lived in it for how many years? For
I moved out in 23.
2023. And actually, didn't Luigi's ex-wife live in it for a while too, or?
For a little bit, yeah, because she couldn't stay at Bailey's with all those stuffs.
Okay.
So we were helping her out, and she was there for a little bit.
And then when did you and Luigi move in? Do you recall?
Into 2010, the end of it,
Okay.
because I wasn't around when he built that.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Dave, I don't know where are you? Oh, I don't know if we have to add, I have the seller here also. Or the buyer, I meant the buyer. I don't think we need to add. Okay. I just request the exhibits be made part of the record, please.
Without exception. Is there any public comment? Come on up. You need to be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your full name, please.
My name is Sarah, S-A-R-A, Pilling, P-I-L-L-I-N-G, and I live at 29 Garrett Avenue. In 2001, the township passed the student housing ordinance. And the Brick Row, which is just to the south of this property, there are 4 student houses rented. They've been able to stay. It's been pretty consistent. But under the ordinance, another student house couldn't begin to exist less than 1,000 feet away. This is probably 25 to 30 feet. So I just wanted to state that because we don't need any more students on our street. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none.
Clearly, it can't be used for student housing, so it's,
Understood.
yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay, do I have a motion? You want me to do it? I'll do the honors. Okay, so I would move that the relief be granted tonight based on the testimony and exhibits as presented, and that we grant a variance from Section 280-49.11E1 for purposes of allowing the residential unit below the commercial unit, and a variance from Section 280-103B regarding the number of off-street parking spaces. Is there a second? Second. Any board discussion? Seeing none. Okay, let's take a vote. I'll go this way. Charlie?
Say yes.
Zach? I'm in favor. John? John? I'm also in favor. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, appeal number 3200, the applicant Villanova University, property located at 800 East Lancaster Avenue, Library Main Campus, and zoned PI planned institutional. Applicant proposes constructing a surface parking area on its west campus in the PI district between two residentially zoned parcels owned by the applicant. Applicant seeks a variance from Section 280-69E3 of the code, which requires a 125-foot side yard setback between a surface parking lot and a residentially zoned property. Applicant also seeks a variance from the buffer requirements of Section 280-71 relating to side properties, since both side properties are owned by the applicant. Applicant further requests such other relief which may be required in conformity with the exhibits and testimony presented. Good evening.
Evening, Nick Cunoli representing the applicant. So this is on Villanova's West Campus. To kind of familiarize everyone with it, County Line Road, Spring Mill Road is down here. West Campus, encompasses this area and comes out here. You can see it on the map up here to the right. The purple is institutionally zoned property owned by Villanova. The parking lot would be located in this area between properties that are actually owned by Villanova as well. 1 Wistar Road is now the residence of Father Peter Donahue, the president of the university. This area here, this purple area, is the proposed parking area. And this area, this R1 here in yellow, is also property owned by Villanova University. The proposal was to put the parking lot between the two properties owned by Villanova. We're asking for relief for the setbacks from those two, even though it is still property owned by Villanova, because a surface parking lot in the PI institutional district needs a 125-foot setback from the adjacent residential properties. We are also proposing to put a buffer area, as you will see, as it fronts on County Line Road. The entrance for this parking area would be down by the bridge, by the Amtrak bridge, Amtrak overpass, where you normally enter West Campus. That is controlled by a guard, so that's why the entrance would be in that manner. So the only way to access this parking lot would be from the West Campus guardhouse coming up here. The purpose of the parking, Father Peter does have events such as dinner parties, Christmas parties, things of that nature. We do realize that on occasion those events will have spillover parking into the Wistar residential area. We're trying to avoid that by having the parking adjacent to Father Peter's house, and it also will service other needs of West Campus as well. As you can see from the map here, in the bottom area, And here is the proposed parking lot, the proposed parking area. You'll see that really it's the only place on West Campus that would accommodate this parking. And actually, it also, here's Wistar Road, and the homes on Wistar Road is being removed from the back of these homes on Wistar Road. So that's really what we're looking for here. We are also looking for relief from the buffer requirements, since the properties are both owned by Villanova. As I mentioned, you will see a plan that does indicate a buffer along County Line Road, which screens the parking lot from County Line Road. Karen?
And state your full name, please. Karen McManus, M-C-M-A-N-U-E-L-S. Say that again, M-C-M-A-N-U-E-L-S.
Just need to go. Okay. Karen, what is your profession?
I'm a civil engineer,
And how long have you been a civil engineer?
about 35 years.
Are you registered in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
I am.
Currently, by whom are you employed?
Villanova University,
And how long have you been employed by Villanova?
about 2.5 years.
Prior to that, how were you employed?
I was employed by Associated Engineering Consultants.
And you've appeared before these various commissions in Radnor many, many times.
I have, many times.
And you've been sworn in as an expert
I have,
in civil engineering.
yes.
I would ask, without further, that Karen be sworn in as a civil engineer, given the standing.
Without exception.
Are you familiar with the application for construction of this parking area?
I am.
And what is the relief being requested? I mentioned it during my opening, but you can also state it during your direct testimony.
Okay. The relief is the setbacks, the side yard setbacks. The required setback is 125 feet, so from that property line, if I come down, that's 125 feet. And from this property, if I go up, it's 125 feet. You could see that the two of them overlap. So that's the relief or side yard.
So you would not be able to put this parking lot anywhere in this area to comply with the setbacks?
Correct. We would not.
And as you heard the testimony, this is part of Villanova's West Campus.
Yes.
And looking up top, on the key up top, that indicates the zoning district.
Yes.
And if you can just point out where the proposed parking is being located on the zoning map.
So it would be in this area right here.
And then where it says 1, and it says Villanova University property, what is that?
The president's house.
And then where it says R1, below that, also Villanova University property?
It is.
And that's a residence that's owned by Villanova.
It's a residence owned by Villanova.
We're also asking for relief from the buffer requirement.
Yes, the side yard buffer requirement. Currently, there is a large number of trees that are planted along both property lines. So it basically has a buffer currently.
And you're providing a buffer that we'll see later on County Line Road.
Yes.
Going to show you what's been marked as, well, first, A2, that's in the packet, that's the deed for West Campus.
Yes.
And A3 is an aerial photograph that actually, we can either look at the photograph below it, be on A4 or A3. And if you can just point out where the proposed parking is being located.
So right now, this red highlighted area is the proposed area for the parking.
Is there really any other place on West Campus that would comply with setbacks where you could place this parking area?
There is not.
Showing you A4, the site plan, and that's been prepared by site engineering.
Yes.
And again, just for direction purposes, if you can tell the board what roads that we're talking about here.
So this is County Line. Spring Mill is going to be down on this side of the paper. Wistar will be at the top.
And how will the lot be accessed? Perhaps you can show it on the zoning map up here, location zoning map up top. Or even, I don't know if you can show it on there or not.
No, so the access into the parking lot would be the same access into West Campus. That would be coming off of Spring Mill Road, going through the guardhouse, and going through this road right here to get access. That road is this road that's down here that they would come off, and the entrance into the parking lot would be off of that road.
The parking area does comply with the front and rear yard setbacks?
Yes, it does.
So no other zoning relief is required except for the buffer and the side yard setbacks on the properties owned by Villanova?
Correct.
And we're asking for how many parking spaces?
57.
And what's the purpose of this parking area? Why is Villanova constructing it?
So the purpose is to keep cars off of Wistar, and as Father has events, and then if there would be some overflow parking for events that would be on West Campus. But it's primarily to keep the parking off of Wistar.
There's a indication of a 10-foot wide path here. Could you tell the board what that path is for?
So that path is really for internal campus use. So if there's any deliveries to the president's house, our custodial people, it's internal for the campus access.
So when you mention deliveries or internal people or internal landscaping or repairs or anything of that nature, how would they access One Wistar? Would they also access One Wistar by way of the North Spring Mill Road entrance?
Yes.
And they will come through the parking lot and that path would be used?
Yes, yeah, they would drive through the campus and through that road.
So the purpose here is to keep cars and whatever off Wistar Road.
Wistar and also
And
off of
County Line.
County Line Road.
I'm going to show you some photographs that we have. I'll start with A5. And if you can go through the photographs, remember to mention what exhibit we're referencing as you go through it.
Okay. So this is Exhibit A5. This is a view, I'm looking towards County Line Road. And the gate right here is approximately, I would be standing roughly here. This is the existing fence and gate. So the entrance into the new parking or proposed parking would
Nick,
be roughly the
Nick,
same.
Sorry, we can't see, if you could slide that plan over, we can't see where Karen was
Oh.
pointing to. Thank you.
Okay. So the view is taken approximately from here. This right line on here is the fence that you see. The gate right here is roughly this area where the entrance drive would be to the parking lot. So this is looking towards County Line Road. This is in the center of the
Again,
campus.
you're referencing
I'm sorry.
A6.
Referencing A6. So this is standing roughly in the center, looking at this grove of trees.
And these pictures were taken during the winter.
Yes. So this is A7. A7 is, I'm basically kind of standing up here looking back towards this road here. This would be the road coming up and around, and the entrance in would be roughly at this area here. That's the path that you saw in the first photo. So this is A8. Again, I'm standing somewhere more in the middle here, and I'm looking out towards County Line. This is County Line, the residence on the other side. This is the house that is owned by Villanova that sits right here. So I'm kind of looking this view. A9, I'm standing more up in the center here, looking towards, again, the house that's shown in the picture is this house here. You can see all the trees that line the property. This, I'm kind of standing in the middle.
A10?
Oh, sorry, A10, sorry. I'm standing in the middle, and I'm looking up towards One Wistar, the president's house. And again, there are a number of trees that line the property there. And this is A11. Again, I'm standing here closer, still looking out towards county line.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A12, and we had mentioned a buffer on County Line Road, and can you describe what A12 represents?
So this is the buffer that's being proposed between the parking lot and County Line Road. We're proposing 23 evergreen trees, 56 shrubs, and this is in and among existing trees that are identified here. There's a number of existing trees. In addition to that landscaping, there's 12 parking lot trees, and there's an additional 5 shade trees.
And then the second page of A12 is just detail.
Yes, these are the detail and the species that are being proposed.
That's all I have for Karen at this time.
Any board questions? I have a question. So you, 57 spaces, I think is what you testified to.
Yes.
Was there any consideration given to reducing the number of spaces and thereby reducing the relief requested tonight?
Even reducing the number of spaces, it wouldn't reduce the relief that we're requesting because it's the side yard and the way that's zoned, because my 125 feet off of this property line goes this whole way, and this one goes the other way. So there, even if I reduce the number of spaces, I would still need relief.
Some relief.
I'd still need the same relief.
I'm sorry? Yeah, you would need less relief. For instance, if
You're saying
you
you-
eliminated that first row of parking at the bottom, the first row of parking at the top, you would reduce your requested relief, wouldn't you?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
So what consideration was given to that?
We've looked at a various number of options of layout, and we were trying to get a certain number of cars in there that we thought could fit comfortably.
Maybe that'll help answer my question then. Why 57?
It's not a magical number. It's a number that, again, we thought laid out nicely and that could accommodate the events that Father would have.
Okay, so that's leads into a different question that I had then. Is this parking then only for those events hosted by the father?
Yes.
Okay,
I
so
believe it's being used for there's another
There's a-
dorm.
There's
there, or another, not
yeah.
a dorm.
There's the Dundell House. There's also events there too. So there would be occasional events, other events on West Campus.
and what kind of events are hosted there?
I think they're fundraising events.
Okay, that's all I have.
Have you given any thoughts to increasing the parking on the property where the president's house is?
So there's limitations on that property, and I think, again, trying to keep the cars off of Wistar, entering and exiting off of Wistar.
Well, that driveway is only 30 or 40 feet in off county line, so,
That's true.
I mean, I'm
So
very
there-
familiar with the property and the house.
There is some parking up by the house.
Right. There's another dwelling unit on that property.
The carriage house.
What, is that going to remain,
Yes, the carriage house will remain.
and it'll be rented out or whatever?
I'm not sure if it's going to be rented out or not. It's being renovated.
And also, talk to me about stormwater management.
So there is stormwater management proposed for the parking. It will be an underground system.
And the slope is actually away from the president's house towards this.
It is. The average grade of the parking lot is 20 feet below the first level of the house.
It's fairly steep.
The green shown on the plan here is steep slopes.
You mind? You testified to the path that, for purposes of access, internal access.
Correct.
Where are deliveries currently made to the president's home? Off of Wistar?
Yes.
Okay, so then that path, I don't know how to describe this, in the upper right-hand, yes,
This-
is
this-
that existing?
No, this is proposed.
And you're going to probably need relief there for the steep slopes.
No, it's not going
No,
to, yeah.
that's not steep slope. Only the green is considered steep slope.
Okay. That's all I have.
Chris?
And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your full name.
Christopher Kowalski, Kovolski.
Chris, what's your occupation?
I work for Villanova University. I oversee government and community relations.
Going to call your attention to this plan. Do you have various meetings with neighbors on this plan?
Yes, so we've had 2 meetings with the neighbors in general. Father Peter hosted a reception for the neighbors in the fall where we did not necessarily speak about this proposal, but we understood some of the concerns from his neighbors. And then we had a Zoom meeting with these neighbors in early January to talk specifically about this project.
And what have you done since, as a result of those meetings with the neighbors?
This project is a result of listening to the concerns of the neighbors. There is significant concern about the amount of traffic on Wistar Road, and in particular generated by Father Peter's presence in this residence. And we want to both support him while also supporting the community, and identified this option as a way to remove as much traffic as possible from Wistar Road while still supporting its use.
And what steps have you taken in an attempt to reduce the traffic on Wistar?
Well, we proposed this parking lot, which will be accessed through our West Campus. Prior to living in this home, Father Peter lived in another existing house on our West Campus. Many of his visitors are familiar with that process of coming in through that staffed entrance down here by the regional rail station and proceeding through West Campus to visit him. So this will be familiar to many people. We also identified this pathway, this drive, as a way to support the internal circulation on a day-to-day basis. That home is serviced by, as Karen said, custodial maintenance crews, other folks who currently are driving on County Line Road and Wistar Road to get to Father Peter's residence. By making that circulation entirely internal to campus, we know that we can address the concerns by taking that traffic off of Wistar Road as well.
On your campus map, how will this parking area be identified? Will it be identified as off County Line Road, or how would it be identified?
No, there will be no address attached to this home on our campus map. Will be identified as a president's residence. When invitations are extended to events, directions will be to access the parking through our West Campus gate, where public safety staff will direct them. We've told the neighbors, and I think they understand that since this is Father Peter's residence, there will be occasion where he may have smaller intimate dinners or personal guests, and there still may be use of the driveway off Wistar Road. But in general, our intent for most university events taking place here would be to direct visitors to come in through our West Campus.
And was there a concern also expressed by the neighbors regarding pedestrian safety?
Yes, there is very much a family feel to this street, and we recognize that as neighbors, and they would like to minimize as much vehicle traffic as possible to support pedestrian safety. One of the things that Father Peter committed to doing upon moving into the house was continue the practice that the previous owners had of allowing pedestrians from the street to access our campus via the property. So while this driveway is shown here on the plan, it doesn't exist now, there is a worn path that is used by the neighbors to access campus for recreational purposes, to come to Villanova for specific destinations. And Father Peter is happy to support that access. This formalizing this pathway will give them a much better, much safer way to access campus in the future.
That's all I have for Chris.
Any questions?
Did you give any thought to a reverse, combining the Villanova properties together?
No, we haven't. No.
Because
We haven't
if
thought-
both of these properties were part of the Villanova property, this would
Right.
not be an issue.
That's correct.
And also, consistent with Rich's question, I would really like to see that bottom row parking eliminated.
Can I speak to the number of spaces briefly? So we recognize that it seems like a lot of spaces. There are instances where there are a decent number of guests at the home, and we want to make sure that this parking area fully supports those guests. And while those events may not happen frequently, even if there were to be infrequent parking on Wistar Road, it would defeat the purpose of having this parking available. So our goal was to have as many spots as possible to support the needs, even as rare as they are, to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep vehicles off of Wistar Road who may be coming to the home.
I have a question. Do you mind if I ask? Okay. So if I'm invited to the president's home for an event, I come and I park off of Spring Mill Road, do I then walk up, or is there a shuttle service that would be provided for guests?
Ideally, you would walk up. If you had mobility concerns, this driveway could be used to drop you off at the door as well.
But not necessarily a bus of, even
No.
small, even a van that
No.
would then take you around. It would
Correct.
be a golf cart that's taking you.
Correct.
Since I have the floor, did the neighbors express any concern regarding the size of the proposed parking lot to you?
I know many of them are here. I'd rather have them speak for themselves if they choose to do that.
That's fine, fair. Any other questions?
Yeah, just real quick. You said you didn't specify the most amount of guests that would be attending the president's functions. What is that number? What are like the larger functions you're hosting?
I don't have a number of maximum guests. The maximum guests that we had at any one event this year was 110. The home is designed as a home. It's not designed in a way that has large open spaces. The first floor is divided into 5 different rooms. So it's not like you can stuff a lot of people in there. And the upper floors are designed to be the president's residence. So it's only the first floor that's used for events. So that's a long way of saying it's not designed to hold a tremendous amount of people for events.
So do you really need the 57 spots?
Again, our concern was getting as many spots here to address the concern that the neighbors had raised of parking and traffic on their streets. And so we wanted to have the number of spots that would accommodate the maximum number of people that we might have in the building to minimize the chances of any overflow whatsoever taking place on the street.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Can you talk to us, for example, the event you said there were over 100 people at, where did they park for that event?
They parked on the property and also on the street. On Wistar.
All on Wistar?
Not all on Wistar. There are many of which we use the valet, and we work as hard as we can to have the valet park cars on the property. However, we've heard from the neighbors, especially the adjacent neighbor, that when that happens, they can be encumbered by the lights that shine onto their property, as even if we're working to not do that. Also, if the valets are taking cars and people aren't aware that there's a valet, they will then park on the street. So that is how we've operated in the few months that Father Peter has lived here.
Any other questions? Nick?
I'm sure there's neighbors here, so we'll step back and.
Do you want to, do you know if any, are we getting a party status request, or are you finished your presentation?
I'm basically finished, just to, if we needed to respond to neighbors,
Oh,
that's all.
certainly, yeah.
So I would request the exhibits be made part of the record, please.
With that exception. Okay. Is there any public comment? Step on up, please. If you would state your name and your address, and then be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. David Mannion, M-A-N-I-O-N. I've lived on Wistar Road for 12 years. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? My name's David Mannion. I've lived on Wistar Road for 12 years. I was invited to the Zoom meeting on January 6, 2025 that was hosted by Villanova for me and my neighbors. They discussed the proposal that we're discussing tonight for the first time with me at that meeting. I'm aware that the plans for the parking lot were submitted prior to the meeting. Prior to January 6, I can testify that no one from the university asked me my opinion on this parking lot. There has been some subsequent email correspondence between the university and me and the neighbors discussing the project. My understanding is the university wants the parking lot to support university events at 1 Wistar Road. The parking lot is going to be built on PI's own property that the university owns. The events are going to be held at 1 Wistar Road, which is a residentially zoned property as of now. In subsequent emails from the university, they've discussed whether events would have guests park at the lot, at the house, and during the Zoom meeting, it was proposed by the university that guests would drive to 1 Wistar Road and valets would move cars from 1 Wistar Road to the proposed parking lot. The addition of the parking lot and the proposal of the university events and the size of the events, which are unknown to us. We don't know how many events they're going to have, what the frequency will be, how many people will attend these events. And it's unclear from the university as of now how many guests for events will use the 1 Wistar Road driveway. Will there be valets moving cars from 1 Wistar Road to this parking lot? And how many guests will have to be directed to access the parking lot through the Spring Mill Road entrance to West Campus? The university also in email refers to 1 Wistar Road as Gallagher Hall, West Campus. The end result is confusion for me and my neighbors. It's unclear what the status of 1 Wistar Road is. Before the university bought the property, it was a purely residential structure. Now it appears to be transitioning from part residence to part institutional. And the parking lot further clouds that issue for me and my neighbors. Until we know the frequency of events and how cars will be delegated to park at 1 Wistar Road or the Spring Mill Road entrance, it leaves us still concerned about traffic conditions at the intersection of Wistar Road and County Line Road. It also leaves us concerned about pedestrian safety. Villanova University owns other property on Wistar Road. This represents a significant shift in usage of 1 Wistar Road already. Does the university have other plans in mind for other properties on Wistar Road? And what can we as neighbors expect to happen with those properties, and how will it affect the fabric of our neighborhood? My request for the board, if you approve the parking lot, make it conditional that there is a formal agreement between Radnor Township and Villanova University. I would like to see an agreement. The township and the university agree to what constitutes a university event at 1 Wistar Road, and have the township regulate car traffic that can access the parking lot through the Spring Mill campus versus One Wistar Road. That would provide a lot of assurance to me and my neighbors that the township is involved in regulating traffic and would promote pedestrian safety. And it would also preserve some measure of the fabric of us being a neighborhood family community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your full name.
Margaret Myers, generally known as Maggie, M-Y-E-R-S. And I'm from 821 King of Prussia Road. So, hi, Maggie Myers, 821 King of Prussia Road. I am the elected Radnor Township Ward 2 Commissioner, and Wistar Road and that neighborhood, as well as the West Campus of Villanova University, are in Ward 2. My statement reflects my own views and not necessarily those of Radnor Township or of the Board of Commissioners. Villanova University purchased One Wistar Road, a residential home from the Smiths in 2020. It's used as a residence for Father Peter, the university's president, and it's been since named Gallagher Hall, as you heard from the neighbors. Its zoning remains residential, not PI. And I understand that a university president must have events both small and large, and that this proposed parking lot will allow guests to park near the residence without parking in the Wistar Road neighborhood. As you've heard, one of the main concerns of the neighbors is the potential for increased traffic on Wistar Road and in the neighborhood, and the safety of neighborhood pedestrians, children, pets, and the like. I understand that Villanova will request that guests for larger events at Gallagher Hall enter through the Spring Mill Road entrance and travel across campus to access this lot for large event parking. There will, however, as you see, be a 10-foot road or drive, it was just referred to, that attaches this parking lot to the front entrance of Gallagher Hall, thereby essentially making a backdoor to the West Campus of Villanova University. My concern is that this 57-space parking lot proposed to support events at Gallagher Hall will not just be used for event parking. It could be used for daytime parking, and I can't imagine it'll remain empty during the day. It could be used for basketball parking or football parking or any kind of event parking that Villanova so chooses. It is on their P1 zoned campus. If I parked there, my temptation would be to exit onto County Line Avenue via this road, avoid the traffic, avoid Spring Mill completely, which is a wild place. And even though County Line Road is a road that is highly traveled and often traveled over the speed limit, I think that people would still prefer to egress there. It also provides for an egress even if you're not there in the parking lot. So I would propose, one, I appreciate Villanova's trying to keep traffic and parking out of the Wistar Road neighborhood, and therefore helping the safety of pedestrians, children, pets, and the like. But perhaps either an electronic gate or a movable bollard, that could go up and down and block that road, except for when necessary for the maintenance vehicles, the custodial vehicles, potentially some catering vehicles that will need to enter that way, or folks with mobility issues that might need to get to the front of the house for an event. And otherwise, that road should be cut off from the residents and access to Wistar Road. In general, as I heard a little from the neighbors, I have a bit of concern about general zoning issues, but that about the residences there or about combining them into the Villanova property, but obviously that's not the issue before the board tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Step on up.
How you doing? Yes. Great. Stephen Elliott, STEPHENELLIOTT. 28 Wistar Road. I want to come up and just second everything that Mr. Mannion said. I think he did a great job articulating the opinions of the street. My opinions here are mine only. I think I just wanted to share my concern, yes, about traffic, but also about the zoning. It is a residential zone property. I believe they have a special exception from the board for institutional type use. So I would just ask the zoning board to consider whether this parking lot kind of supports the existing use of the property, or does it push it more towards not conforming with the zone that it's currently in? I think that's my biggest fear, is that the one Wistar Gallagher Hall at some point becomes, or is already not conforming with residential use type. So that's my biggest concern. I wanted to voice that, but I also wanted to second Mr. Mannion's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? No? Okay, seeing none.
Could we condition the approval on limiting the uses of the president's house to non-educational uses, for example, so it would be limited? I mean, I've been to tons of fundraisers at private residents, so that's not inconsistent with what happens in this township. But don't want to hear someday that they're running math classes over there or a poetry class or.
That would already be a violation of the zone. I mean, it's a residence. That's the only thing it could be used for.
But it'd have a little more weight if we condition it.
You can. I mean, the board has discretion, but you want to make it a condition that you obviously can enforce, or the township can enforce. But you can make whatever conditions you want. I want to speak for the board, but that condition already applies to the property.
I guess the question I have is one Wistar even in front of us tonight?
It isn't. But the applicant owns both.
Right.
And I think you could, I think you could assert the condition you're stating, but I don't think it isn't necessary under the zoning code. I think the applicant probably would agree with me on that.
Yeah, it's a residential property.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
they
it can't be
can't
used for
use it for any other
institutional.
purpose.
Yeah.
They couldn't conduct classes there. I mean, outside of something that somebody might do at a home. But if it's deemed institutional by the township, they would stop it.
And just the whole thing here, the whole purpose here, I hear the neighbors about the traffic on Wistar. This is kind of what this is designed to alleviate, is the traffic on Wistar.
Okay. Anything else, Nick?
No, that's all I really have, because actually by doing this, we're again alleviating the issue regarding the traffic. That was the whole purpose of this, because everything's internal from West Campus.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion? You want to, all right, go ahead. Yeah.
The motion is that the application be approved for a variance to section 280-69E3 of the code to eliminate or modify the 125-yard setback. And applicant also the buffer requirement of 280-71 relating to side properties, and consistent with the testimony and exhibits.
I think the reference is 280-69E1, just to be clear.
Okay, that's not pronounced.
Oh, I'm looking at the application.
Yeah, it's E1.
E1, okay.
I believe, Kevin, we went through this.
E3 is the distance,
Setback, yeah.
yes.
I think it is E3.
E3 is the correct, okay.
Yeah. E1 references, a Category 1, Category 2 use. E3 references what the setback is for those uses. So it is E3.
Yep, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second to the motion? Well, let me say this.
You can second the motion and still vote.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So typically, we like, as a board, we've developed, it's easier to vote on a motion to approve than it is to a motion to deny. So in order to avoid that double
And you
negative,
don't have to vote
we
the
tend to
way-
make our motions in the positive, and then you can always vote against. So right now, there's a pending motion. Okay, so we have a second, thank you. All right, any board discussion then?
Yeah, so I guess my biggest concern, the size of the lot, it seems like it's just going to encourage bigger events, and that's going to undermine what the neighborhood wants. For me, the biggest issue is 57 lots seems way too much, and it's just inviting chaos. So that's kind of my big concern. I did like the idea of the pole cutting off the pathway, because I think that'll also be abused and might create issues for the neighborhood. So those are kind of my two primary concerns.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Zach?
I was gonna say, my concern is really it being this side cart path being used as a cut through. That's, as Charlie is leading to, that's a big concern for me. That's my thoughts on that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think, to me, this is a case of the nose of the camel in the tent, and I think that once this is built, if it is built, it'll ultimately result in a change in the Okay, I'll.
Anyone else? John?
Vote
No?
a commitment to bollards.
Yeah. Can we
Yeah.
just, I was going to just have Chris address a couple of comments here, which,
Can we allow, it's
kind
up
of-
to me?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, sure.
If you want to allow it.
Yeah, I'll allow, of course.
Go ahead, Chris.
So just on the, can you hear me, Norma? This one better? Okay. Just on the two issues. So my concern is a lesser number of spots won't achieve, I think, the goal that everybody wants. I understand the notion of concern about this parking being used for other purposes, but this is really near only two buildings that are not widely used on campus. As with anything that people attend, they want to park as close as possible. So the thought that this might be used for basketball games or football games is not likely based on our current observations and the current activity on campus. Our goal is to find a way to address the concerns that have been raised from the neighbors that you've heard tonight. We think this parking lot addresses them in a way that minimizes or almost eliminates the impact on their street. And I'm concerned that if we aren't able to move forward, then we don't have many other options to address those concerns. We'll still have the level of activity on the street, but without the benefit of this parking area to keep the traffic off of the street. In regards to the driveway being used as a cut-through, I don't think that that's a practical reality. This would be driving through a residential property to get onto campus. We monitor our parking lots for who is allowed to park where. We have cameras, and we have a resident in that house who will be looking at the traffic that is coming through. It is not, I think, realistic to think that it'll be used as a backdoor entrance to campus or as a backdoor exit to campus. We could explore the potential of bollards there if that alleviates that concern. I think that would be something that we could discuss. And if that was the holdup, then I'd like a minute to talk to my colleagues to see if that's something we can commit to. But I just wanted to address those two things in particular.
Okay, thank you. Did that prompt any other questions or board comments?
Or public comments.
Or, oh, fine, or public comment. Does anybody from the public want to address? Sure, no, come on up. Just remind you that you're still under oath.
Yeah, thanks. A question.
And, oh, if you wouldn't mind, just identify yourself for the record again.
Sorry, yep. Stephen Elliott, 28 Worcester Road. This is the proposed lot area, right?
I believe so, yes.
This, right here? Yeah, yep. This is Dundale, which is a building. That's, what's that? Right there.
I have to speak into a microphone.
Oh, yeah, here you
That
are.
is a parking area that currently supports that building.
And this?
Are you pointing at, what do you?
It's a parking lot.
Yeah, those spaces are currently allocated for existing uses on our campus.
Yep. This is a parking lot.
It is.
Okay. Like, I don't know how big of a hardship. Like, I just feel like there's a lot of parking on West Campus, is what I want to point out. So, like, that parking lot, I appreciate the university, like, working with us. We do want to keep traffic off of Worcester Road. Trucks fly around the corner there. Cars fly around the corner, not just Villanova cars, at County Line and Worcester. The parking lot serves the president and the university, I think, foremost. That's my impression. It's not a serving, we would benefit from it for sure. But I feel like there are potentially other options that they could look at on West Campus.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go back to the board. Well, I guess anybody else from the public before I go back to the board? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so I have a couple comments that I'd like to make. So this application presents a really interesting balancing act because in order to alleviate the issues that we've heard the neighbors talk about of parking on their street during events, at the same time, we are not permitted as a board to grant relief which exceeds the minimum necessary. So the less relief we would give results in further impact to the neighbors or no relief to the neighbors. But by the same token, I think our hands are constrained. So I am extremely troubled. I understand the number 57, you're trying to maximize what you can get. But to me, I don't see any effort to drive to that legal requirement of seeking the minimum necessary to abate the problem.
Yep. We have to go back and talk to other people. I would request that this be tabled and continue to next week, and we can come back and perhaps give some more definitive information to this board.
Sure. I guess we'll hold the record open then? Yes. We'll continue it, okay. Okay, without objection.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, thank you. Okay.
The problem we have is the history of Villanova.
Thank you for your patience.
I'll call it mission creep. So they're talking like this now, but.
You know what, there's a lot of people. Maybe we'll stand in recess for 5 minutes and then we'll get to you guys.
Yeah, they come in to get it rezoned. Oh, no. I mean, I was going to.
Oh, yeah. Well, if it doesn't get seconded, then we would sit and then we'd have to, like, somebody else would have to, that table or that motion would be, I don't know what the right word is. My Robert's rules are, I only know so much. But I think you table or write it would be just a non-existent motion. But yeah, I mean, you know, I move to deny.
Well, that's what I was saying.
All those in favor say aye. So you're saying aye to the negative. It's so confusing.
So they come in 3 years from now, it's rezoned. Yeah. Yes, I lived through those. He'll get over it, John. Yeah, he heals fast, especially when something's needed.
Yeah, you didn't think all those people were here for you. Before we back on our
You did it, you beat the clock.
All right, I'll call us back to order. Thank you very much for your patience. Appeal number 3201, the applicant Bridget O'Brien McDonald, property located at 245 Willow Avenue, zoned R5 residential. The applicant wishes to return the previously consolidated property at 245 Willow Avenue to two separate properties, of 245 and 247 Willow Avenue, requesting a subdivision of the property and seeks relief from 280-35A1 and 280-35A8 of the code. Good evening. If you could-
Yeah, I think I'll testify. I'm John McDonald. Okay. I do. Is John F. McDonald? Okay. Yeah, just a short time ago, a couple years ago, we were here to consolidate these two lots to great joy and fanfare. Unfortunately, after we consolidated them and turned the house into a single-family home, Bridget and I, I'll say amicably, divorced. And so now in order for Bridget and the children to be able to stay, to afford the property, we have to revert it back to a twin so that we can sell off the other half. So the application is essentially to take what we had consolidated and turn it right back into what it was before. The two...
Excuse me one second. John, would
Sure.
you remind the board what relief was granted when we approved the consolidation request? If you remember.
My recollection was impervious coverage. It did exceed. Both properties had exceeded impervious coverage when they're individual.
There was something with the front yard.
So, right, so the consolidation was impervious, but then we also requested for the front porch to be added. You're right, I forgot about that. So that, and I'm sorry, here we go. So this area right here is the front porch that was added so that we could put the door on the front of the house. There had been a porch on the side here, as well as a porch on the side here, with entrance to both twins on the side of the home. So we were able to remove some impervious to offset the added impervious of the front porch so that we could have a front door, essentially.
Sorry, I
Please, it's
interrupted you.
No worries, no worries. So the relief that we're seeking is the first relief would be the lot size. It does not conform. R5 requires 5,455 square feet, I believe, and we're at 3,750 square feet per side. And then the impervious on the newly divided, I'll pull this over. So this is what it will look like, reverting it back. So this is the 245 side. This is the 247 side. 247 will be exactly 40% impervious coverage. 245 will be 40.9%. We're not increasing the impervious on the 245 side. That's just what the existing is, and frankly, what it was prior.
Okay. Why don't I run you through your exhibits? So we have a packet in front of us. So we've got your application. We've got your, I guess the application we'll make as A1. We've got some photographs.
Oh, yes.
We can make those A2. I've got the deed of consolidation to the property. We'll name that A3. A4 is the subdivided meets and bounds description for which property? If you can tell.
So the second line says description of proposed consolidation. We have one that says 245 and then one that says 247. So they're almost identical.
Oh, I see it. Okay. I lost track of where I was numbering.
Okay, so the deed of consolidation was A3. So A4,
245.
245. And then A5 would be 247.
47. Okay. And then you have a large set of drawings. Are they, is it multiple drawings or just multiple pages of?
So it's 2 pages. One page is the existing condition, which is noted as the plan of survey.
So let's make the existing condition then
6.
6, thank you. And then we'll make the proposed condition as A7.
Okay, A7.
Okay. So it looks to me that the impervious surfaces maximum is 40%. 247 will comply.
Correct.
Okay, and 245 needs some relief.
That's
0.1%,
correct.
0.9%, okay. So it's the lot area, that's the variance. So that requires, it's a dimensional variance, but you still have to show a hardship that was not self-created. Can you address that for the board? It's almost like, you know, what's the cliche, the horse is already out of the barn? Something
Right,
like that. I
right.
don't think I said that right, but that's the burden that you have to establish for it.
Interesting.
Mr. Chairman, something we talked earlier about relief that was previously granted. I believe, and I'd have to check, if there was relief previously granted for impervious coverage, does that then factor into this parcel as a whole, then being subdivided out? So if 247 is going to be complying and relief was granted for 245, which is what is currently addressed, does that granted relief carry forward to what will still remain as 245?
Yeah, so instead of answering the question directly, I'm going to deflect.
yes.
Given the size of the request at 0.9%, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but it's, dare I say, it's de minimis. So I'm more worried about the lot sizes but I will deal with that. I think I'd rather vote on it than make an assumption. Thank you, though.
Well, I guess if I could say that from a hardship perspective, given that the properties all predate any zoning regulations, and we're seeking to return them to the pre-consolidated status, the hardship, I would say, would be that the township allowed for them to be two individual properties in the past by grandfathered in. So we're seeking the township to enable us to revert it to what it was, and it was acceptable previously. That's a stretch, but that's what I've got. And I will say, as a means of consideration, there is a shed in the backyard of 245 that my son said he's willing to take a sledgehammer to reduce the impervious coverage. Bridget told me about that tonight, and
He might need a demo permit. That's not my department.
Okay. But
okay. Any questions from the board?
Well, my view is the reason that it was okay before is because it pre-existed the zoning. So that's why it was non-conforming. But now we're asking to make it non-conforming. That's what we're really being asked to do. And when I look at hardship, is you're asking us to undo something you asked us to do.
And I took a look, just to the board, just for your edification, the only thing that was granted last time, the only relief that was requested was to be permitted to put that porch in the front yard setback. So there was no other relief was needed for the consolidation. That was outside of this board. But the only thing that you granted last time, and that was July of 2021, was just to permit the construction of the front porch in the front yard setback.
yeah, I think if I could, I know the hardship applies to the physical constraints of the property, but I'm asking, I mean, we've been residents of Radnor for 25 years, and the kids and Bridget would really like to stay. And just like our marriage, we had to undo the marriage. And so I'm throwing myself on your compassion.
50% of marriages in this country end up in divorce. So. Sad state of affairs.
It's horrible, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, it is a dimensional variance, so although there's a hardship requirement, it's the totality of the circumstances when it's dimensional. It's not a standalone element that you have to establish. It's still something that should be considered. It does need to exist, but it's in the totality of the circumstances in terms of the dimensional variance, the extent that they're being requested, how, I'm sorry. But, and you can't see me talking. I'm sorry. I love the way you court reporters read lips. I think that's amazing. No, they actually look at your lips to see what you're saying. So I just wanted to let the board know that. From the legal standard, with the dimensional variance, the hardship portion becomes a totality of the circumstances. So it's not a standalone element as it normally would be in a use variance or other types of variances.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Do you have anything else? Do you want to?
Sorry, Bridget O'Brien, McDonald.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do, thank you. Bridget O'Brien McDonald, please. Thank you. So I guess I'm just here to request support for my children. I want them to be able to go off to college and come home to the house that they grew up in. And I know it's emotional, so I'm very sorry. But really all we're asking to do is literally throw a wall up between the houses, the wall that we tore down. We love our neighbors, their family, their friends. And the house, we made the house so beautiful. We put in a brand new roof with a 50-year warranty. The siding's all brand new. We've got the gorgeous front porch. We've completely improved the look and the feel of the property. So I feel like, if anything, all we've done is do good for Willow Avenue and Radnor.
Have you spoken to any of your near neighbors about the request for tonight?
They love it. They absolutely love it. So they thought it was very unique. I don't know too many people who would go through a consolidation and then subdivide, but it was my idea to be able to stay on the street. And they're thrilled because before that, I probably spent a full year completely and totally stressing about having to leave Willow Avenue and probably also having to leave Radnor. So they're all just celebrating this. So it's everybody loves it. We're so blessed.
Thank you. Okay. There's nothing else then. Now you would move your exhibits into the record?
Yes, if we could.
Sure, without objection. Okay. Any public comment? Seeing none. Do I have a motion? I'll do it. Okay. So I would move that the application be granted for relief from Section 280-35A1 regarding lot size and 280-35A8 of the code regarding impervious coverage based on testimony and exhibits presented. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? None? Okay. So I'll just make a couple comments. So I'm glad that council gave us an idea of how we have to look at and think about the hardship and whether or not we can reach it. So I'll start with A8. I kind of said it earlier. The relief on the impervious coverage at 0.9% is to me is de minimis. There's really nothing to think about there. On the lot issue, to me, given the fact that it actually there's no impact to the neighborhood, there's no impact to the surrounding neighbors. if anything, dare I say, it brings it back in line with the rest of the homes on the block as side-by-side twins or whatever they're considered to be called. So based on the totality of the circumstances, I'm going to vote in favor of the motion. Anybody else?
I was going to say, as part of a board, what we're doing is looking after the best interests, the welfare, and the overall happiness and well-being of the residents of Radnor Township. So I feel that permitting some people who've lived here for 25 years or more and not separating out a family is within those interests. So I'm also going to vote in favor of this.
Anyone else? No? Okay, let's take a vote. Charlie?
I'm for it.
Zach? John? John? I'm also in favor. Good luck to you. I'm sorry to hear about the divorce. Best of luck to you both.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, we will see you in February, and we stand in adjournment.